If you follow the web of money that fueled the Trump campaign, one name that you will repeatedly run into is Mercer, mainly Robert Mercer and his daughter, Rebecca. You'll find the billionaire family of ultra-conservative Republican mega donors directing millions of super PAC dollars to Trump during the election, acting as benefactors to Steve Bannon and pouring millions of their billions into Breitbart.com, and bankrolling Cambridge Analytica, the data firm used by the Trump campaign, which we now know reached out to WikiLeaks in an effort to get their hands on Hillary Clinton's emails. But this week, Robert Mercer made news, not with money he was giving, but money he was taking away, as he announced his departure as CEO of a $50 billion hedge fund. Mercer also said he'd be selling his stake in Breitbart to Rebecca and her two sisters, and withdrawing his funding from a venture run by Breitbart's former alt-right poster boy, Milo Yiannopoulos, who you may recall lost his right-wing luster after championing pederasty, MAGA. Joining me now is Jane Mayer, staff writer for The New Yorker and author of Dark Money, The Hidden History of the Billionaires Behind the Rise of the Radical Right. And Jane, this is a great piece in The New Yorker I recommend everybody read, because most people, when they think billionaires who fund Republicans, they think Koch brothers. The Mercers, though, seem to have far more sort of, far-reaching tentacles, everything from Kellyanne Conway's polling firm to Donald Trump. How deep are their hooks into the Republican Party?
Well, I mean, they are specifically the backers of Trump, and one of the people who worked with Bob Mercer at Renaissance Technologies, a man named Nick Patterson, said to me he didn't think Trump would be president without the help that he got from the Mercer family. They've poured millions into the Trump project, and they are, I think, most interestingly, as you've said, the money behind Breitbart, which has stirred so much divisiveness and hatred that has sort of worked to Trump's advantage in the country.
Yeah.
So they're very close with Bannon. They've really pretty much been the sponsors of his career. And they are now working with Bannon to try to put money behind far-right candidates who will run for Congress in 2018 and Senate candidates to try to keep disrupting the regular old Republican Party and replace it with really far-right Trump supporters.
And as we just showed this sort of Venn diagram, Center for Public Integrity in October of last year did this sort of piece that showed the web of connections during the campaign between Robert and Rebecca Mercer. I don't know if you guys can see that through the TV, but you have Mercer's Trump and former Citizens United President David Bossie and Trump are connected. The Mercers are funders of Kellyanne Conway, who was for Ted Cruz and then switched to Trump. And of course, they're the big funders behind Steve Bannon. Talk a little bit about Robert Mercer's ideology. We know there's a lawsuit against him by a former Renaissance Capital employee who claims that he said outright racist things, something Robert Mercer has denied. What is Robert Mercer and Rebecca Mercer's ideology? What do they want out of getting control or getting influence in government?
Well, good question, because one of the things that I think viewers need to know, and all Americans need to know, is this family, this particular hedge fund manager who is worth so much money, is trying to manipulate American politics and get what he wants, but doesn't give interviews. He doesn't talk about what he wants. He's very reclusive. He's very secretive. So he's hiding what it is that he really believes. And I've tried endless numbers of times to get interviews with him, and so has everybody else who covers this stuff. But he doesn't speak. So what you have to do is piece together his views from talking to people who've known him for many years. And what they tell you is that he's got views that are kind of off the charts in terms of kind of almost kookiness, very far right, but very conspiratorial-minded. He believed that and told people that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton had literally murdered people or had them murdered. He believes that. He thinks that nuclear war has some upsides because he believes that radiation that comes from nuclear bombs has health effects that are good for people. And he's talked in terms of race. I mean, his views have been very upsetting for some of the people who work in the firm and who know about it, because he said things like he thinks the Civil Rights Act was the worst thing that happened in American history. And he's said things about poor Americans that are basically, his ideology is that you're worth what you earn. So people like himself are worth a ton more to the country because they make so much money. And people who are on welfare, he thinks, have negative value to the country. Wow. Because they don't earn anything. Wow. So it's a harsh and weird ideology. He's a brilliant computer scientist. This is not to take away from his math skills, but when it comes to politics, that's where he's pouring his money right now. He's got views that I think many people would be upset about if they knew them. And what happened, and the reason he stepped down from his firm, was the public was beginning to see more of what he thinks, and people who were investors in that firm, big pension funds, began to get very, very uncomfortable with putting their money in there.
Yeah, indeed. And in the statement, two Renaissance employees distancing themselves from Milo Yiannopoulos, who was the poster child for Breitbart.com for a long time, a protege of Steve Bannon. They said actions and statements by Mr. Yiannopoulos have caused pain and divisiveness, undermining the open, productive discourse I'd hoped to facilitate. It was a mistake to have supported him, and for several weeks I've been in the process of severing all ties with him. Interestingly enough, as Jane Mayer has pointed out, he had ties to him, and he knew who Milo Yiannopoulos was and was happy to give him money. He just is pulling out because maybe some of his associates aren't happy with it. Jane Mayer, hope everyone does read your great New Yorker piece on the Mercers and your book, Dark Money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, and more AM Joy after the break.